If you grew up in the 1960s, you probably heard the name Studebaker, maybe in an old car magazine, your neighbor's dusty garage, or a story about that Avanti that flew past like a ghost on the highway. And then, the name just vanished. No farewell, no final horn. Studebaker was once a pioneer. Before names like Mustang or GTO hit the streets, they built cars with supercharged hearts, radical designs, and a spirit that refused to conform. They didn't follow trends, they created them, and paid the price for it. Today, we revisit that journey. We look back at 8 high-performance machines Studebaker once dared to build. Cars that went against the grain, defied expectations, and were ultimately buried by their own boldness. 1964. Studebaker Avanti R2. While the American car industry was still obsessed with chrome lines and boxy silhouettes, Studebaker quietly dropped a design bombshell called the Avanti. No front grille, a fiberglass body, and a long, tapered fastback shape that looked more spaceship than sedan. In 1962, it did more than shock. It confused people. But the Avanti was not just a looker. The R2 version packed Studebaker's own 289 cubic inch V8, paired with a Paxton SN 60 centrifugal supercharger. It cranked out 290 horsepower and 303 pound-feet of torque. It launched from 0 to 60 miles per hour in just 7.5 seconds, matching the C2 Corvette of its day. Top speed? Up to 140 miles per hour with proper gearing. It also pushed the boundaries of tech and safety. Front disc brakes from Dunlop, a built-in roll bar, an aircraft-inspired dash with toggle switches. Options included air conditioning, power windows, and tilt steering. Studebaker hoped to sell 20,000 units per year, but in the end, only around 5,800 Avantis were built. The R2? Just 1,200. Not because the car failed, but because the factory closed in late 1963. 1963, Studebaker Super Lark R2. At first glance, it looked like a car for an elementary school teacher or a housewife going to the market. But beneath that gentle exterior was a machine that could leave Corvettes and Jaguars eating dust in the first 15 seconds. They took the compact, lightweight Lark model and stuffed inside it the heart of the Avanti, a Paxton supercharged 289 cubic inch V8 engine, 289 horsepower, 303 pound-feet of torque, and a compression ratio of 9.75 to 1. A beast hidden in business attire. The Super Lark R2 could accelerate from 0 to 60 miles per hour in just about 7 seconds. It reached the quarter-mile mark in 15 seconds. To withstand that power, it was equipped with a heavy-duty Dana rear axle, T10 4-speed manual transmission, stiffer suspension, and even had optional front disc brakes, extremely rare at that time. But the most appealing part was the modest appearance. No racing stripes, no aggressive exhaust pipes, just a few small badges, a slightly raised hood to fit the supercharger, and plain steel wheels. It was a true sleeper. Its price back then exceeded $3,500, expensive for a compact car. Fewer than 200 Super Lark R2 units were produced, and today, the remaining ones could probably be counted on one hand. 1964, Studebaker Daytona R2. If you saw a Daytona R2 parked on the street in 1964, you would not think anything special. It looked like a respectable sedan for the middle class. Studebaker, in a final effort to survive, decided to stuff the heart of the Avanti, a Paxton supercharged 289 cubic inch V8 engine, into the Daytona sedan. The result was a car with 289 horsepower, 303 pound-feet of torque, a T10 4-speed manual transmission, a Dana 44 rear axle, and optional front disc brakes. A complete powerful configuration, ready to compete with any rising muscle car at the time. It could accelerate from 0 to 60 miles per hour in about 7 seconds. It passed the quarter mile in just over 15 seconds. But unlike the GTO or Fairlane Thunderbolt, the Daytona R2 was not flashy. No racing stripes, no hood scoop, just a few jet thrust badges, optional magnum wheels, and the high-pitched whine of a supercharger when you hit the gas. That discreet look made the Daytona R2 a perfect sleeper. A car driven by a dad in a dress shirt, but capable of pulling you out of your lane with just one stomp on the pedal. Sadly, only about 100 to 150 Daytona R2 units were produced, not because the car was bad, but because Studebaker had hit rock bottom. Dealerships shut down, marketing budgets vanished, and no one knew how powerful this small sedan truly was. 1956 Studebaker Golden Hawk. The Golden Hawk was equipped with a Packard V8 engine with a displacement of 352 cubic inches, producing 275 horsepower and 380 pound-feet of torque. A terrifying number for that time, when the Corvette only reached 225 horsepower and the Thunderbird had 215. Even with a curb weight of around 3,400 pounds, the power-to-weight ratio remained among the best in America that year. In terms of performance, this coupe could accelerate from 0 to 60 miles per hour in about 8.3 seconds and run the quarter mile in 16.5 seconds. Numbers that made many sports cars of the era jealous. But what truly set the Golden Hawk apart was its appearance. A long coupe body, pointed nose, tail fins, upright grille like a European car, and shiny chrome details. The interior was equally luxurious, with the optional Ultramatic automatic transmission, AM radio, air conditioning, and upscale upholstery in cloth or leather. However, the car also had some disadvantages. The large engine made the front end quite heavy, causing understeer when cornering. The design was considered mature compared to the Corvette or Thunderbird, though in reality it was more refined and sophisticated. Studebaker sold just over 4,000 units in 1956. Not a large number, but impressive for a company struggling in a highly competitive market. 1958 Packard Hawk. Based on the platform of the Studebaker Golden Hawk, the Packard Hawk used Studebaker's 289 cubic inch V8 engine, paired with a McCulloch Paxton supercharger. The result was 275 horsepower and around 333 pound-feet of torque, allowing the car to accelerate from 0 to 60 miles per hour in about 8.5 seconds. Very impressive for a luxury 4-seat coupe in 1958. But the most controversial part was the design. A fiberglass nose, a wide grille like a shark's mouth, squared-off lines, gold-trimmed tail fins, wire wheels, and chrome everywhere. Some called it bizarrely beautiful. Some said it looked like a car from Mars, but no one could ignore its presence. The interior was equally impressive. Aircraft-style dashboard, genuine leather, 160 miles per hour speedometer, and a series of amenities like air conditioning, power windows, and power steering. Though it carried the Packard name, it was essentially a rebadged Studebaker Hawk. And for car lovers, that was both a tragedy and the final chance to hear the Packard name roar one last time. Only 588 Packard Hawks were ever produced. A strange, bold, and deeply regretful farewell for a brand that once ruled America. 1964. Studebaker Wagon Air R2. One of the strangest and boldest cars the company ever produced. The unique design of the Wagon Air came from Brooks Stevens' idea. The rear roof panel could slide forward, allowing for vertical cargo space expansion. You could carry a refrigerator or a large potted plant without opening the tailgate. A brilliant idea, but not at the right time. But what made the Wagon Air R2 legendary was not the sliding roof, but the supercharged engine inside. Still, the same 289 cubic inch V8 from Studebaker, paired with a Paxton SN60 supercharger, producing 289 horsepower and around 330 pound-feet of torque. Combined with a 4-speed manual transmission or the Flight-O-Matic gearbox, the Wagon Air could accelerate from 0 to 60 miles per hour in 8.5 seconds. Faster than many sport coupes of the time, this car could carry the whole family, the dog, luggage, and still be quick enough to make a Mustang V8 nervous. Even so, fewer than 15 Wagon Air R2 units were produced in 1964. The reason was that the sliding roof was prone to leaks, the car was too strange for the average consumer, and Studebaker was dying at that time. They no longer had money for advertising, nor dealers to showcase this high-speed wagon. 1955, Studebaker President Speedster. The President Speedster was launched in 1955 as one of Studebaker's rare luxury two-door coupes designed to impress both in appearance and performance. Only around 2,000 units were produced, and all exuded boldness. The exterior stood out with two-tone or three-tone paint, gleaming chrome, wire wheels, a raised hood, and exclusive Speedster badges. Under the hood was a 259 cubic inch V8 engine, producing 185 horsepower and about 260 pound-feet of torque. A 3-speed manual or automatic transmission was a common option. Not a race car, but strong enough to accelerate confidently on the highway. And more importantly, its interior was among the most luxurious in its class. Genuine leather, brushed aluminum dashboard, 120 miles per hour speedometer, tachometer, aircraft-style toggle switches, air conditioning, and power steering. The Speedster was an important stepping stone, paving the way for the later Golden Hawk. Although it was not a sales success, it showed the world that Studebaker could also build cars that were beautiful, fast, and refined. 1951 Studebaker Commander. As the first car in America to use an all-new overhead valve V8 engine after the war. This engine had a displacement of 232.6 cubic inches, produced 120 horsepower and about 190 pound-feet of torque. Thanks to its compact, lightweight, and efficient design, it outperformed the heavy flathead blocks of Ford or Chrysler at the time. And this was also the foundation for all of Studebaker's later high-performance engines, from 259 to 289, both naturally aspirated and supercharged. The Commander was not a muscle car. It was not aggressive, not made for drag racing, but with an overdrive transmission, it could cruise steadily at 90 miles per hour, smoother and more efficient than many larger rivals. The design was also controversial. The bullet-nose front end reminded people of fighter aircraft. Some hated it, some loved it, but no one could deny it was different. The only problem? Studebaker was not strong enough to promote it successfully. They could not beat GM or Ford in terms of media presence. So, even though it was ahead of its time, the Commander V8 was forgotten. However, the other companies did not forget. Just a few years later, Chrysler launched the HEMI, Ford introduced the Y-block, and Chevrolet unveiled the legendary small block V8. Studebaker was never a giant, but they dared to do giant things. They built pioneering V8s when others were stuck in the past. They made supercharged cars, fiberglass bodies, sliding roofs, radical designs, and then quietly disappeared. The 8 cars you just saw were not just metal and engines. They were symbols of boldness, creativity, and pride from a small company that once dreamed big. They deserve to be remembered. More than that, they deserve to be celebrated. If you've ever seen, driven, or owned a Studebaker, share your story in the comments. And if this is your first time hearing the name, congratulations! You've just discovered a forgotten chapter of automotive history. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on the bell for more stories like this. Thanks for riding with us.